Ladies and gentlemen, when you wake up in the morning, the first battle is often in your own mind. Thoughts come rushing in before your feet even touch the floor. You think about the task ahead, the problems that still linger from yesterday, the conversations that didn't go the way you wanted, the uncertainties about tomorrow. And for most people, this becomes the rhythm of their entire day, carrying the weight of everything, believing they must control every detail, forcing their way through life as if their destiny depends entirely on their own struggle. But what they don't realize is that the more they cling to control, the heavier life becomes. The human mind is powerful, yes, but it was never designed to carry the whole universe. It was created to align with a greater power, a divine order that knows the path far better than we do. When you surrender and let God take over your day, something extraordinary happens. You stop resisting the current of life and begin flowing with it. Most people believe surrender is weakness. They think if they let go, they'll lose. They imagine surrender as giving up, as if stepping back means life will collapse. But the opposite is true. Surrender is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. Because in surrender, you are no longer relying on limited human reasoning. You are stepping into infinite wisdom. When you say, God, this is your day, guide me, you release yourself from the constant anxiety of having to figure everything out. You stop trying to manipulate every outcome, every person, every circumstance. You trust that the one who created the universe has already lined up the right people, the right opportunities, and even the right challenges to shape you. This is where real power is found, because when you are not exhausted from controlling, you have energy to create, to live, to expand. Think about the ocean. A wave doesn't fight against the current. It rises and falls with the flow of the sea, and in that flow lies its beauty and power. But imagine a wave trying to resist the ocean, trying to hold itself in place, refusing to move. It would collapse under its own weight. That is exactly what happens when we try to control life without letting God in. We collapse under the heaviness of worry, fear, and frustration. But when we surrender, when we say, God, carry me through this day, we rise effortlessly, we flow, we move with a rhythm that feels lighter, freer, more natural. There is a law at work in life. The more you resist, the more you suffer. Negative feelings are born out of resistance. You resist what you cannot control. You resist people not acting the way you want them to. You resist circumstances not unfolding on your timetable. And this resistance builds pressure inside you. Anger, stress, doubt, depression, these emotions are nothing more than signals of resistance. When you let God take over, resistance breaks. You no longer fight reality. You accept it, transform it, and rise above it. What seemed heavy becomes light. What seemed impossible begins to shift. Look closely at those who live with constant tension. Their minds never rest. They replay conversations. They anticipate failure. They try to control every variable. They believe it is their responsibility to make everything happen. But the truth is, control is an illusion. No matter how much you plan, life will always bring the unexpected. You cannot control every event, but you can decide who is leading your life, your limited self, or the unlimited source. When you surrender, you hand over the steering wheel to God, and what happens is miraculous peace enters. Where worry once lived, clarity replaces confusion, and power returns to you in ways that are far greater than what your own effort could achieve. Surrender also opens the door for guidance. If your mind is full of noise, you cannot hear direction. Imagine a radio trying to tune into a signal, but static fills every channel. That is the human mind when it is cluttered with fear and control. But when you release, when you quiet the need to force everything, suddenly the static fades and you begin to hear. Ideas drop into your mind. Solutions appear out of nowhere. You meet people by coincidence who bring opportunities you never planned for. This is not chance. It is alignment. When you let God take over your day, your life starts to align with the higher order already prepared for you. It's important to understand that surrender does not mean inaction. It doesn't mean you sit still and wait for miracles while doing nothing. No, surrender means you act, but you act with trust. You take steps, but you don't cling to the outcome. You move forward, but you let go of the fear of failure. You do your part knowing God is doing his. This is the balance most people miss. They either try to control everything or they give up completely. But the real power is in the middle, in surrender with action, faith with effort, trust with movement. Each morning becomes an opportunity to practice this. The moment you open your eyes, instead of grabbing your phone and flooding your mind with noise, you pause, you breathe, you say, God, today is yours. Lead me. That simple shift removes the weight of yesterday and the fear of tomorrow. It centers you in the present, where God's power is always available. And throughout the day, whenever you feel tension rising, whenever negative thoughts try to pull you under, you return to that surrender. You whisper inside, God, take this. I give it to you. And just like that, the burden lifts. You are no longer carrying it alone. You are partnered with infinite strength, infinite wisdom, infinite love. Negative energy is one of the most silent destroyers of human potential. It creeps in quietly, almost unnoticed, and before you realize it, it has taken control of your entire day. You wake up with a small thought of worry, and that thought multiplies. You replay a mistake, and the memory expands. Someone says something critical, and it sticks to you like glue, shaping your mood and draining your spirit. Negative feelings do not just live in the mind, they vibrate through the body, influencing your posture, your tone of voice, even the way you walk. They reduce your frequency, and everything in life is affected by the frequency you operate on. Just like a magnet, you attract experiences that align with your vibration. When you live in negativity, you draw more reasons to stay negative. It becomes a cycle. Low thoughts leading to low emotions producing low actions, and low actions shaping a destiny that feels heavy, stagnant, and unfulfilling. The mind is like a broadcasting station. Every thought you hold sends out a signal, and that signal is received by the world around you. If your dominant signal is fear, worry, doubt, anger, or resentment, then the experiences that return to you will match that frequency. People will respond with resistance. Opportunities will appear blocked. Even your own body will reflect it through tension, illness, or fatigue. This is why negative feelings cannot be ignored. They must be transformed. You cannot pretend they don't exist because energy never disappears. It must be shifted. And the fastest way to shift negative energy is to raise your frequency by aligning with God's presence. Think about it like tuning into a radio station. If you want to hear uplifting music, but your dial is stuck on static, you won't hear anything but noise. That noise is negativity, confusion, heaviness, chaos. But when you tune your inner dial higher to gratitude, faith, and surrender, suddenly the music comes through clear. That music is divine alignment. It is clarity, peace, and strength flowing into your spirit. You don't have to force it. You just have to shift. And the shift begins with awareness. You must notice when you are sinking into negative energy. You must recognize the subtle ways it enters through your own thoughts, through the environment you keep, through the conversations you allow, through the inner dialogue you repeat. Awareness breaks the cycle because once you see it, you can choose differently. The truth is, negative feelings are not permanent. They are signals, invitations to rise higher. When you feel fear, it is not a life sentence. It is a sign that you are focusing on what you don't want instead of what you do want. When you feel anger, it is not who you are. It is a sign that you are resisting what you cannot control. When you feel sadness, it is not your destiny. It is a sign that you are disconnected from the source of joy within you. Every negative feeling is a messenger pointing you back to alignment. But most people misinterpret the message. They believe the feeling is their identity, so they dwell in it, feed it, nurture it, and allow it to expand. This is how destinies are derailed, not by one massive event, but by the daily repetition of low vibrations. When you bring God into the center of your thoughts, you instantly raise your vibration. Fear dissolves in faith. Worry disappears in trust. Anger melts in forgiveness. Sadness lifts in gratitude. It is not about forcing yourself to be positive, because that becomes fake, a mask covering what you really feel. It is about inviting God's energy into the moment and allowing Him to lift you higher. You cannot push out darkness. By struggling against it, you turn on the light. And the light is always available. It is simply waiting for you to stop resisting and let it in. Every moment of the day is a choice of energy. If you notice yourself dwelling on negativity, you have the power to pause and choose differently. You can choose to pray instead of panic. You can choose to breathe deeply instead of reacting emotionally. You can choose to see the bigger picture instead of being trapped by the small moment. These choices raise your frequency. And when your frequency rises, everything changes. People respond differently to you. You begin to notice opportunities that you once overlooked. Ideas come more easily, creativity flows, solutions reveal themselves. The external world shifts because the internal world has shifted. It is also important to understand that energy is contagious. When you carry negativity, it doesn't just affect you. It spreads to everyone around you. Your family feels it. Your coworkers feel it. Even strangers sense it in your presence. On the other hand, when you carry light, faith, and peace that also spreads, people are drawn to you. Doors open because your energy becomes magnetic. This is why letting God take over your emotions is not just about personal relief. It is about becoming a vessel of higher energy that transforms every environment you enter. One of the most powerful tools to shift negative energy is gratitude. Gratitude immediately lifts you out of what is missing and places you in the awareness of what is already abundant. It tells your mind to focus on blessings instead of problems, on possibilities instead of limitations. Gratitude is a higher frequency, and when you practice it, negative energy cannot remain in the same space. Another tool is forgiveness. Holding on to resentment keeps you chained to low energy. The moment you forgive, not to excuse the other person, but to free yourself, you rise. Prayer is another gateway. When you pray, you invite divine energy to replace human weakness. You stop carrying the weight alone and your vibration naturally elevates. Negative energy cannot define your destiny unless you allow it. It is always a choice, a frequency that can be changed in a single moment of surrender. The key is to remember that you are not powerless. You are not stuck in the heaviness of yesterday. You are connected to a source that can lift you instantly. And the moment you align with that source, your day, your emotions, and eventually your destiny begin to shift into something higher, brighter, and far more powerful than anything negativity could ever create. Every single thought that passes through your mind is like a seed, and each seed has the power to shape the direction of your life. What you consistently think about, what you dwell on, and what you allow to dominate your mental space eventually becomes your reality. The truth is, your life right now is a reflection of the thoughts you entertained yesterday, last week, last year. And the life you are stepping into tomorrow will be built on the thoughts you choose to hold on to today. Every thought creates your destiny because thoughts are not passive. They are creative forces, vibrating frequencies that call into existence the very experiences you end up living. When you think small, you live small. When you think fear, you live in fear. When you think doubt, you walk through life hesitating and missing opportunities. And when you think faith, abundance, and possibility, the world around you begins to shift in ways you couldn't have calculated with logic. People often underestimate this invisible power because they believe thoughts are private, contained only in the mind. But nothing in this universe is contained. Just like you cannot stop energy from moving, you cannot stop a thought from creating. The moment you hold it in your mind with emotion, it begins to set forces in motion, aligning circumstances, people, and events that mirror it. Negative thinking is dangerous because it narrows your vision. When you are stuck in worry, your brain scans for more reasons to worry. When you are consumed by lack, you overlook opportunities that could expand you. The mind becomes blind to possibility because it is too busy proving the thought true. This is why people stay stuck for years. They keep recycling the same thoughts, and those thoughts build the same results over and over. The cycle only breaks when you become intentional with what you allow in your mental garden. If you let weeds grow, they will choke the life out of your dreams. But if you plant powerful, faith-filled thoughts, your life begins to flourish in ways you never imagined. The most beautiful part is that you are not doing this alone. When you let God take over your thoughts, you stop creating from a place of limitation. Human imagination is powerful, but when it is aligned with divine wisdom, it multiplies beyond measure. God gives you pictures of possibility, visions of your future that are higher than your present circumstances. He drops ideas into your spirit that your mind alone could not have produced. And when you choose to hold on to those divine images instead of fear-filled ones, you become a magnet for destiny. The thought itself becomes a prayer, and the energy you carry becomes an invitation for that reality to unfold. Think about how the body responds to thought. Imagine a fearful image. Your heart rate increases, your palms sweat, your body tenses, even though nothing has actually happened in the physical world. That is the power of thought. Now imagine what happens when you hold a thought of victory, peace, or success. Your body relaxes, your energy expands, and you feel inspired to take action. If your body responds so drastically to thoughts, imagine how much more your external life is responding. Every business started, every relationship built, every invention created began first as a thought. The difference between those who achieve greatness and those who remain average is not luck. It is the quality and consistency of the thoughts they entertain. This is why discipline of the mind is everything. If you allow your mind to wander aimlessly, it will always drift toward fear because fear is the default of the human ego. But when you train your mind to stay aligned with God's vision, you elevate beyond fear. Training the mind requires daily practice, affirmations rooted in truth, meditations that align your spirit, prayers that shift your focus upward. These are not small rituals. They are the foundation of creating a new destiny. Every time you catch yourself dwelling on what you don't want and you consciously replace it with what you do want, you are rewriting the script of your future. It is not enough to casually think about success once in a while. You must saturate your mind with the image of who you are becoming. Hold it, feel it, believe it as if it is already done. This is not wishful thinking. It is aligning your energy with the result until the universe, by divine order, brings it into manifestation. God designed the mind to work this way. He gave us imagination not for fantasy, but for creation. He gave us the ability to choose our thoughts so we could partner with Him in shaping our destiny. But when you fill your imagination with fear, anger, or despair, you misuse that gift and you create a life you never wanted. The secret is to understand that you cannot stop thoughts from coming, but you can choose which ones to feed. A thought without your attention dies. A thought fed with your focus grows into reality. If you notice a negative thought creeping in, don't panic, don't resist. Simply shift. Replace it with a higher thought. Instead of, I can't, say, God is guiding me. Instead of, it won't work, say, the right path is opening. Instead of, I'm afraid, say, I am strengthened. Over time, this practice rewires the mind, and what once felt impossible becomes natural. When you choose God-centered thoughts, you no longer live as a victim of circumstance. You become a deliberate creator, shaping your reality from the inside out. Your environment may look the same in the beginning, but your energy is changing, your perspective is shifting, and soon the external world has no choice but to follow. This is how destinies are transformed, not through sudden miracles falling from the sky, but through the daily discipline of aligning thought with divine truth until life itself bends to the power of that alignment. Faith is often misunderstood as something passive, a quiet belief that sits in the background of life. But faith is not still, it is not silent, it is not fragile. Faith is energy, a living force that transforms emotion into motion, taking the invisible and making it tangible, taking what you believe in your heart and turning it into the reality you walk through. Without faith, emotions can run wild, dragging you into fear, doubt, anger, or despair. But when faith enters, emotions are no longer masters, they become fuel, directed and harnessed toward a higher purpose. Faith does not erase feeling. It channels it, reshaping the way you move, the way you speak, the way you act, until your entire life reflects the vibration of trust in something greater than yourself. People often live at the mercy of their emotions. One bad comment ruins their mood. One setback steals their confidence. One disappointment convinces them that they are destined to fail. They ride the roller coaster of feelings, going up when things go right and crashing down when things go wrong. This instability keeps them stuck because emotions alone are not stable foundations. They shift like the wind. But when you allow faith to lead, emotions stop dictating your life. Faith becomes the anchor that holds you steady even when your feelings scream otherwise. You may feel afraid, but faith pushes you to act with courage. You may feel weak, but faith compels you to step forward with strength. You may feel lost, but faith guides you to keep moving when logic has no answers. Faith is not ignoring reality. It is choosing to see beyond it. It is looking at circumstances that say, "Oh, impossible," and still moving as if it were possible. It is hearing the voice of fear telling you to stop and deciding to advance anyway. It is the invisible confidence that the steps you take are not wasted, that every action aligned with faith is building something you cannot yet see. Faith takes your internal state and converts it into external movement. Without faith, emotions become stagnant energy, looping endlessly in your mind. With faith, those emotions become fuel, propelling you into action that shifts your destiny. When you let God take over your emotions, faith rises naturally. You stop reacting based on the surface level of feeling and start responding based on a deeper knowing. Fear transforms into trust because you are no longer carrying life on your own shoulders. Anxiety transforms into peace because you believe that the path is already laid out for you. Anger transforms into patience because you trust timing greater than your own. Sadness transforms into hope because you believe the story isn't finished yet. This is the power of faith. It is the alchemy of the spirit, transmuting heavy emotions into purposeful steps that align you with destiny. Consider the way faith changes how you handle challenges. Without faith, a setback feels like the end. You collapse emotionally, you lose momentum, and you sink deeper into negative cycles. But with faith, the same setback becomes fuel. You view it as a lesson, a redirection, even a preparation for something greater. You take the emotion of disappointment and allow faith to convert it into resilience. You take the emotion of fear and allow faith to convert it into courage. The external challenge may not change immediately, but you have changed, and because you have changed, the outcome that once seemed fixed begins to shift. Faith also influences the quality of your decisions. When emotions run unchecked, decisions are impulsive, reactive, often destructive. People quit too soon, lash out at others, or retreat in fear because their choices are ruled by momentary feelings. But when faith takes the lead, decisions become deliberate, purposeful, and aligned with long-term vision. You act not from where you are, but from where you believe you are going. Faith lifts you above the chaos of the present moment and allows you to see with clarity. That clarity shapes your choices, and those choices shape your future. It is essential to understand that faith is not simply believing in God's existence. It is trusting His guidance in every detail of your life. It is living as though His promises are already fulfilled, even when circumstances appear unchanged. This is why faith is so powerful. It shifts not only your emotions, but your behavior. A person who truly walks in faith speaks differently. Their words carry conviction and authority. They think differently. Their inner dialogue is filled with strength instead of defeat. They act differently. Their steps are bold, intentional, and persistent even when logic says to stop. That is the transformation of faith. It integrates thought, feeling, and action into one unified force that propels destiny forward. The human mind cannot fully explain how faith works because faith operates beyond logic. Logic asks for proof before it moves. Faith moves before proof exists, and in moving it creates the proof. Logic waits for certainty. Faith steps into uncertainty and finds certainty waiting on the other side. Logic depends on what can be seen. Faith depends on what cannot be seen, but is deeply known in the spirit. This is why faith is the great transformer. It takes what is invisible and turns it into the visible, using the energy of emotion as its raw material. Think of how a fire burns. Without direction, fire can destroy, consuming everything in its path. But when harnessed, fire gives light, warmth, and power. Emotions are the fire of the human experience. Without faith, they burn out of control. With faith, they are harnessed, directed, and turned into a source of energy that lights the path forward. Faith takes the raw flames of feeling and transforms them into a steady fire that pushes you through darkness, uncertainty, and doubt.